You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and obviously there's no bigger story than Tiger Woods' car crash. An accident that when you saw it, you thought, oh my God, this could be it. Then you hear the news that Woods didn't suffer any life-threatening injuries. His golf career may be over, but at least he's still alive. Now, I'm not saying definitively that his golf career is over. If anyone can come back from devastating injuries, it's Tiger Woods. He's done it before. But at this stage of his life, where he's had 4 or 5 back surgeries, and isn't the dominant force that he once was. I mean, I just don't see how he comes back from this. I mean, there were reports that came out that said that Woods had at least 1 compound fracture. 1's bad enough, but if it's 2, and if you saw the aftermath of the crash, it could be 2. There's no coming back from that. His golf career is probably over. I mean, if you read the press release that Woods tweeted out, it's scary. It paints a grim picture. He's got a lot of rehab ahead of him. I mean, look, if anyone could come back from this and win a major, it's Tiger Woods. And we've seen golfers come back from devastating injuries before. In 1949, Ben Hogan was in an absolutely terrible car wreck. It nearly killed him. After that, he somehow recorded 12 more PGA Tour wins, including 6 majors. And the images of Hogan limping down the course for 18 holes is incredible. So it's been done before, but I wouldn't bet the rent on it. I will say this, I'm not a big golf fan, so you want to talk about outside looking in, I'm about 100,000 miles on the outside looking in. But even I can appreciate the greatness that is Tiger Woods. And if this is truly it for him, what a terrible end. Obviously, my thoughts and prayers go out to Tiger. I wish him a speedy recovery, and if there's a way for him to get back out onto the PGA Tour, or even the senior circuit, go for it. It'll be fantastic. But I will say this, I saw some people speculating on the cause of this accident. The reality is that's unfair. You have no right to do that. This guy was just in a major car crash, and you're throwing out all these theories of infidelity again and drunk driving. It could be something as simple as he just lost control of the car. I mean, he wasn't driving his car. He was driving a tournament-sponsored car. This could be something as simple as the car did something Woods wasn't expecting. He lost control and things went haywire. Or he swerved to avoid an animal and he lost control. I don't know. We have no idea. To speculate on the cause of this is incredibly insensitive. I'm sure Tiger will release a statement outlining exactly what happened. But to speculate on the cause of this is reckless, irresponsible, and insensitive. Again, my thoughts and prayers go out to Tiger Woods and his family. Alright, now I'll give you some NBA Valk talk. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the All-Star game. I gotta be honest with you, I really don't watch it. I'll watch the other events. The 3-point shootout, the slam dunk contest. Those events I like, but the actual game, I can't get into. I know they made some revisions to it recently. It's still unenjoyable to me. So it's really hard for me to get invested in the All-Star Game snubs. Were there snubs? Absolutely. Devin Booker, De'Aaron Fox, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Brandon Ingram, Domantas Sabonis, Chris Middleton, Trae Young, Gordon Hayward, Tobias Harris, and Fred VanVleet. They all had legitimate arguments to make the All-Star team. But this is what everyone misses when it comes to these arguments. Who are you replacing? No one who was named to the All-Star team didn't deserve it. The only guy who you can make that argument for is Anthony Davis. And even then, that's just because he got hurt. So obviously what happens then is he's still an all-star, but there's an injury replacement. So one of the snubs will get in. Probably Devin Booker, because I think we can all agree that out of all the Western Conference players to not get in the All-Star game, he's having the best season. It's not enough to say that Mike Conley should have been an All-Star. Okay, yes, he's having a good season. Who are you bumping? The bigger argument should be that we should expand the roster size of the All-Star game. It makes no sense to have less All-Stars than there are roster spots for a team in the league. You're saying that these All-Star teams couldn't even be a legal team under NBA rules. Obvious statement of the year coming up. If the coronavirus wasn't a thing, you'd be able to have 13 active players plus 2 inactive players plus 1 or 2 two-way players. You can also have 0 two-way players if you want. So excluding the two-way guys, because I think we can all agree there's no two-way player that should be an all-star, that leaves you with 15 roster spots. And with the coronavirus being a thing, you can have 15 guys on your active roster. Steve Nash became the first coach in NBA history to play 15 guys in the same game. He did it against the Warriors on opening night. Each conference should have 15 All-Stars. That way there's no argument. Booker gets in, Brandon Ingram gets in, De'Aaron Fox gets in. I'd probably put him in over Shea. If you want to put Shea in over Fox, okay, it's really close. But even then, with Davis out, the guy left out gets in as the injury replacement. And in the Eastern Conference, Middleton, Sabonis, and Young make it. Easy. Case closed. That's the argument we should be having. Why does each conference only get 12 All-Stars? Make it 15. Make it a full roster. If you can carry 15 guys on your team on normal contracts, make that the same way for the All-Star game. Each conference sends 15 All-Stars. You can do the draft, whatever, I don't care. I think the draft is kind of stupid, but whatever, I really don't care about it. I'll be honest with you, I don't even vote for the All-Star game because I care so little about it. The only All-Star game that I vote for is the MLB All-Star game. It's the only one I can watch. It's the only one where there's any form of defense. And the final vote that the league used to have, I got really into. I thought that was really fun. They should bring that back. I remember one year Nick Swisher was a final vote candidate when he was with the Yankees. And the Yankees had an alliance with the Rockies. It was vote for Nick Swisher in the American League and vote for Carlos Gonzalez in the National League. Well, after I evaluated the 5 guys in the American League, it was Swisher, Kevin Youkilis, Michael Young, Paul Konerko, and Delman Young, I came to the conclusion that Swisher wasn't the best candidate. And I whispered that to my father, because I didn't want anyone to hear it. I didn't want to get into an argument with someone. I was 13 years old at the time. For whatever it's worth, Swisher was voted in, but Cargo wasn't. Joey Votto got it in the National League. But that was fun. Major League Baseball gets it right. The NBA doesn't. The NBA All-Star Game is a joke. It's been a joke for years. The Slam Dunk Contest is fun. The three-point shootout is fun. The layup, three-pointer, and half-court thing that they do is fun. But the actual game is terrible. I refuse to watch it. But I will say this, though. Why are we having an NBA All-Star Game this year? It makes absolutely no sense. No one wants it. The mayor of Atlanta even said something to that effect. She doesn't want anyone going to the city to watch it from outside states. You're going to have this mass gathering of people during this pandemic to play an exhibition game. It's a joke. No player wants to play in this. Alright, maybe the first timers do. Maybe a guy like Randall does. Maybe a guy like Jaylen Brown does. Zach LaVine. And maybe Zion Williamson does. Maybe. They probably don't. They probably want to spend this time with their family. They're getting some days off. I need to go to Atlanta to play an exhibition game? No, I'm not going to do that. There was no Pro Bowl. They did something with Madden. If you wanted to do something with 2K, fine. But don't play an actual game. No one wants to play in this thing. It's a joke. It makes 0 sense. You're having enough trouble playing the games that actually matter. Now you're going to waste time, effort, resources, and money on an exhibition game. It's an absolute joke. Do what the NFL did. Name All-Stars. That's fine. But don't have them travel to play a meaningless game that no one wants to play in. What a joke. While I'm on the subject of the NBA, I will talk about the moves that the Nets made. It's nothing earth-shattering. They released Andre Roberson, Iman Shumpert, and Noah Vonleh. Shams Charania of The Athletic said that the Nets want to sign Roberson and Shumpert to 10-day deals, assuming they clear waivers. Basically, it just lessens the cap hit that Joe Tsai would have to pay. That's fine. I have no issue with that. As for Vonleh, though, it seems like his time with the Nets is over. Okay, he didn't make much of an impact with the Nets, and he is being replaced by Tyler Cook. A guy who in his 8 games in the G League bubble has dominated. He was playing for the Iowa Wolves. With the Wolves, he was averaging 20.8 points per game, 9.6 rebounds per game, and 4.4 rebounds per game. He nearly had a triple-double against the Long Island Nets in the Wolves' first game in the bubble. For whatever it's worth, though, the Iowa Wolves are winless in the bubble. They're 0-9. Now, none of that should be on Cook. He's by far and away their best player, but it's just noteworthy. Now, I don't know too much about Cook. It seems like he has a scoring touch, which is nice. He can't stretch the floor, though. Okay, fine. It seems like he's a really good rebounder, which is good. The Nets need that. It hasn't been as much of an issue in recent games as it was earlier because DeAndre Jordan has really stepped up his game, give him credit. But it's still an issue. Also, the one thing I've heard is that Cook is a really good passing big man. I mean, the guy is putting up 4.4 assists per game. For someone who plays either small forward or power forward, that's really impressive. Now, I'm not sure how much you're going to see Cook. The one thing I'll say is, and this has been really surprising to me, these mid-season acquisitions that the Nets have made, Roberson, Shumpert, Vonleh, and Pell, they really didn't get much of a chance to strut their stuff. That was kind of upsetting. You bring in these guys to address holes on your roster. You're not even giving them a chance. It's not the end of the world, obviously. I mean, the Nets are one of the hottest teams in basketball right now. They're only a half game behind the Sixers for the top seed in the East. But I really didn't like that. Like, I rave about the moves. They're good moves. They make sense. They should address the Nets' holes. And they don't play. The Nets still have those issues. Again, though, if that's the only problem I have with the Nets, they're in great shape. Like I said, they're the hottest team in basketball. They've won 7 straight. And with fans being allowed into the Barclays Center, which will ramp up in the second half of the season, all is right in Brooklyn. I'm going to try to get to some games. No promises, but I'm really going to try. I'm really going to try to get to the Islanders-Devils games, though. Governor Murphy of New Jersey is going to allow fans into the big New Jersey arenas starting March 2nd, I think, or March 1st. The first game the Devils play under that edict is at the Prudential Center against the Islanders. They play them on March 2nd. Then, the weekend after that, so not the 6th and the 7th, the 13th and the 14th, the Devils will host the Islanders on a back-to-back. I am going to try to go to those games. Also, the Islanders just made an announcement. Starting on my birthday, March 18th, they will allow fans in. So, good job, Islanders. You finally did it. I'd love to know why it took you so long, but whatever. I'll finally be able to go to some Islander games at the Nassau Coliseum and or the Prudential Center this season. I couldn't be happier. While I'm on the subject of hockey, though, I will talk about Claude Julian being fired. Julian, obviously, was the head coach of the Canadiens. Not anymore. Kirk Muller was also fired. He was the associate coach for the Canadiens, obviously, former player. He's now gone too. Dominique Ducharme, I'm sure I butchered that name, is now the Canadiens' interim head coach. And Alexander Burrows, remember him? Former Canuck. Really good defensive forward in his day. Is now on the coaching staff along with Luke Richardson, former Islanders assistant coach, and Stefan Waite. And I gotta be honest with you, I'm not crazy about this move. You can fire Kirk Muller all you want. I still haven't forgiven him for forcing his way off the Islanders over 25 years ago. But Julian is a really good coach. This guy won a playoff series last year in the bubble. You beat the Penguins in the qualifying round. Also, if the season ended today, the Habs are in the playoffs. They're the 4 seed. They get to go up against the Leafs. You get an old Leafs-Canadiens playoff matchup. Nothing better than that. I know that the Habs have hit a rough patch recently. They've lost 6 of their last 8. They just wrapped up a 2-game series at Ottawa. They lost both of them, one in overtime, one in a shootout. Yeah, you should beat the Senators. I get that. But the simple fact is, Julian has had this team playing well. Guys like Tyler Toffoli and Jeff Petrie are nearly point-a-game players. Nick Suzuki is one of the most underrated young guns in the game. Josh Anderson has turned into a really good goal scorer for the Habs. Jonathan Drouin has turned into a really good passer. Brendan Gallagher is doing his thing. Shea Weber is doing his thing. You want to blame anyone for the Habs' struggles recently? Blame Carey Price. Because Price has been dreadful this year. He's 5-3-3 with an .893 save percentage and a 2.95 goals against. This guy was lights out in the bubble. Remember those battles between him and Carter Hart? They were insane, but for whatever reason, Price has just fallen off a cliff this year. I don't know whether it's exhaustion. Obviously, he's been asked to play a lot. For the Canadians, they made the move to get Jake Allen as a premier backup. And Allen has been the better goalie. Obviously, you're not going to move on from Carey Price. Probably the best player in recent Habs history. But would it kill you to roll with Allen for a few games? Maybe let Price catch his breath? Let him get his act together? You want to tell me that's on Julian? I get that. He is the head coach, but I personally pin it more on Waite. He's their goaltending coach, after all. I'm not crazy about this move. I do think Ducharme will do a solid job. He's inheriting a roster with a lot of talent. He's from Quebec. He speaks French. That's important if you're going to be Canadians' head coach. And he's been with the Habs since the 18-19 season. Before that, he was a very successful juniors coach in the QMJHL. He made the playoffs every year he was in the Q, with the exception of the 15-16 season for the Halifax Mooseheads. Then he went to the Drummondville Voltigeurs. Again, I'm sure I butchered that name. So look, I'm sure Ducharme will do a solid job. It seems like he has a good head on his shoulders. But I really can't get behind firing Julian. I do think he'll land on his feet. Maybe with the Kraken. That would be a challenge I would want. Taking over an expansion team. That would be very appealing to me, personally, if I was a coach. Or a GM. Moving a little south of Montreal, I want to talk about Brandon Montour being available to be traded for, according to Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet. Montour is a solid defenseman. He has 3 assists in 14 games. Bad year. I get that. He's with the Sabres, though. Everyone is struggling for the Sabres. Last year, he had 18 points in 54 games and was a plus 13. He has talent, and he's young. He's 26 years old. I don't begrudge the Sabres for making him available. He signed a 1-year deal with the team in the offseason. So if you can get like a 3rd-round pick for Montour, that's perfectly fine. And the team that trades for him is getting a solid 3rd-pair defenseman. Maybe top 4 if you need him to. Maybe. That's borderline, though. I wouldn't be too comfortable with that. Could you do it in a pinch? Yes. But in a perfect world, you shouldn't. There are worse defensemen than Brandon Montour, though. If you're a contender and you need a defenseman, Montour would make sense. Alright, now I'll give you some college basketball Valk talk. And there were a lot of upsets yesterday, which is great. Fantastic. Absolutely loved it. I gotta start with Georgia Tech knocking off Virginia Tech. And I give Josh Pastner a ton of credit for the halftime adjustments that he made. It was tied at 24 entering the half. Virginia Tech was doing a really good job on Moses Wright, the Yellow Jackets' best player. Then Pastner really schemed him open, and Wright went off. He had 26 points in the game. 17 of them came in the second half. He had a double-double. He had 10 rebounds. Jose Alvarado had 13 points and 5 steals. And Michael DeVoe had 12 points. The Yellow Jackets also shot 62% from the field in the second half. Like I said, a great job of halftime adjustment making by Josh Pastner. You forget how good of a coach he is. Remember what he did in Memphis? As for Virginia Tech, this is a tough loss for them. They just couldn't put the ball in the ocean. And the Yellow Jackets don't have a great defense. They don't have an awful defense, but it's just average. Naheem Alain was really ineffective. Hunter Couture only took 2 shots. Wabissa Bede only took 1 shot. Bad game for Virginia Tech. Really, I was not impressed with their offensive execution. This isn't a make-or-break loss or anything. They're still a solid team. They have good players. But I don't care how good your defense is. Your offense needs to contribute also. Moving on now to the biggest upset from yesterday. MSU knocking off Illinois. And let me tell you, they thoroughly outplayed the Illini throughout basically all of that game. They did a great job of penetrating, a great job of shooting the mid-range. Aaron Henry went off. He had 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Rocket Watts showed his speed. He had 15 points and 5 assists. Joshua Langford, a guard, a 6'5" guard, had 13 points and 16 rebounds. Off the bench, Joey Hauser had 13 points. Illinois just collapsed defensively. They're not a great defensive team, there's no question, but they usually do a solid job of interior defense. It was an express lane to the rim. It was an express lane to the mid-range. Yesterday, the Spartans only shot 8 threes. That's usually a recipe for failure. It just seemed like Illinois completely underestimated the Spartans. One other thing that MSU did really well was force the ball out of Kofi Coburn's hands. Coburn is one of the most underrated players in the nation. Ayo Dosunmu gets all the headlines. Coburn's a really good Robin. The Spartans did a really good job of making his shots tough. They sent him to the line a lot. That's the right thing to do. He's not a good free throw shooter. He was forced to kick it out a lot to a guy like Trent Frazier. All due respect to Frazier. He showed up. He was the high man yesterday. He had 22 points. He can't be taking that many shots. There's a hierarchy with Illinois. Dosunmu, Coburn, everyone else. That's how Illinois wins games. And I'll say one other thing about the Spartans. It's not out of the question for them to sneak into the big dance. They play OSU tomorrow, and they finish up the regular season with 2 games against Michigan. If they can win at least 2 of those remaining 3 and go on a big run in the conference tournament, assuming there is a conference tournament, you'd have a tough time keeping the Spartans out. I wouldn't put anything past Tom Izzo. Moving on now to the game that I nailed. Texas beating Kansas in an overtime thriller. Yes, it looked like I was going to be wrong for a substantial portion of that game. Yes, Texas really didn't deserve to win. When you shoot under 40% from the field and under 20% from beyond the arc, you don't deserve to win. But you've got to give the Longhorns credit for going on a big second half run. Greg Brown stepped up and made 2 big threes. Andrew Jones made some big plays. Kai Jones made some big plays. And Courtney Ramey, with ice in his veins in overtime, to hit those 2 free throws with a minute left. Hey, when you're on death ground, you've got to step up. And those guys did. Give the Longhorns credit. That was a really impressive win. That was one of the better college games that we've had all year. If I had to pin this loss on anyone for the Jayhawks, it would be Marcus Garrett. He shot just 2 for 12 from the field. He played 38 minutes. He only had 4 points. That's not going to work. I give Bryce Thompson credit for scoring 11 points in 20 minutes off the bench, but the Jayhawks really need their starting 5 to carry the load. I said that yesterday. Agbaji did his part. McCormick did his part. Wilson did his part. Braun did his part. Garrett didn't. He's the reason Kansas lost. If he hits just one more shot in regulation, Kansas wins. The game never goes into overtime. This is an impressive Texas team. It's a team that could go on a big run next month. Kansas can too. They have the players for it. And they have the coach for it. They just need to be clicking on all cylinders when they get into Indiana. I know that's easier said than done, but it's the truth. Moving on now to the terrible, and I mean abysmal, Kansas State Wildcats upsetting a really good Oklahoma Sooners team. This may have been the biggest upset that happened yesterday. Either that or Illinois going down. It's close. It's really close. I mean, Kansas State just stinks. Let's be honest. They're 7-18. Bruce Weber really needs to get his act together. This is a team that can't score consistently. They can't defend. They are an abysmal team. There's no other way to say it. They stink. And you're going up against an incredibly well-rounded Sooners team. With really talented players. Austin Reeves, Davion Harmon, my boy, Elijah Harkless, Umoja Gibson, and Brady Manek. But he somehow find a way to beat them. The Sooners should have won this game. They were up by 6 with 3 minutes left, and Mike McGurl, freaking Mike McGurl, a guy who most people in Kansas wouldn't know if he came to their house and delivered them a pizza, hit 3 straight three-pointers to give the Wildcats the lead. He had 19 points. Give him credit. Give DeJuan Gordon credit for having a double-double, 11 points and 10 rebounds. Give Davion Bradford credit, 13 points and 8 rebounds. And also, give the Wildcats defense credit. Manek was atrocious. Shot 1 for 7 from the field, 0 for 5 from beyond the arc. Gibson, 2 for 11 from the field, 2 for 6 from beyond the arc. Even a guy like Elijah Harkless really didn't make his usual impact defensively. I give KSU credit for not keeling over and dying. It would be very easy for them to not show up. And they beat a really, really good Sooners team. That's impressive. Moving on now to Ole Miss beating Missouri. And the Tigers have really picked the wrong time to go cold. They've lost 4 of their last 5. Earlier this month, they were the 10th ranked team in the nation. They had knocked off Alabama. They looked like a really scary team. Now they're struggling. You want to talk about backing into the tournament? The Tigers have hit the curb, bumped into the car in front of them, and ran over a puppy. Quanzo Martin needs to get this team sorted out quickly, or else they're not going to win a game the way they're playing. They're a prime upset candidate. The seminal reason that Missouri lost was that their best player, Xavier Pinson, no-showed. Shot 1 for 9 from the field, 0 for 4 from beyond the arc. And Missouri just doesn't have the depth to compensate for that. Drew Smith is solid, but he's not great. Jeremiah Tillman is a beast on the interior, but he's not great in terms of scoring. It's got to be Pinson. He failed. Bad job by him. He's why the Tigers lost. Now, give the Rebels credit. Really, really good defensive team. They only allow 63.5 points per game. That's the 32nd best mark in the nation. And you saw that yesterday. After all, Missouri only mustered 53 points. But I really like the well-rounded effort that Ole Miss got offensively. You had Devontae Shuler leading the charge. That's the right thing. But then you had guys like Romello White, Jarkel Joyner, and Luis Rodriguez all contributing 10 points. This was a textbook win for Ole Miss. This is how they win games. And I'll say this. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They've got Vanderbilt on Saturday, who they'll beat. And they have Kentucky on Tuesday, who they'll beat. They could make a case for an at-large bid. Bracketology this year is tough. I don't envy guys like Joe Lunardi. I do want to preview tonight's game between two ranked teams. And that is Alabama traveling to Arkansas to face the Razorbacks. Two almost identical teams. All offense, no defense. The over-under on this game is 157.5. Take the over. This is also going to be a great coaching matchup. Nate Oates is one of the most underrated coaches in the nation. He's done a fantastic job with Alabama after doing a great job at Buffalo. And Eric Musselman has been coaching basketball for a long time. Very, very smart guy. When you look at the Crimson Tide, you've got to key in on four guys. Jaden Shackelford, John Petty, Herb Jones, and off the bench, Javon Quinterly, who's done a great job since transferring from Villanova. As for the Razorbacks, they're similar. You got to key in on four guys also. Moses Moody, J.D. Notte, excellent sixth man, he'll match Quinterly, Justin Smith, and Jalen Tate. This is a really tough game to make a pick for. These teams are very evenly matched. They're more evenly matched than you'd think. There's going to be some unheralded guy stepping up. I just know it. Whether it's Joshua Primo, Jordan Brunner, Desi Sills, or Connor Vanover, there's going to be someone who you don't expect to step up and contribute to their team's win. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the upset. Arkansas is home. I'm pretty sure they're allowing fans into the stands. Don't quote me on that. And Moses Moody is the best player in this game for either team. It wouldn't surprise me if Alabama won. They're a really, really talented team. But I am going to go with Arkansas. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that I never doctored a baseball with a foreign substance. Vaseline is manufactured right here in the U.S.